A sharp slap to the face jolts the boy awake. His father stands over him, rage burning in his eyes, declaring him the ultimate disgrace of the family. But little did anyone know, this so-called failure, Yuren, was destined to master every martial art in existence within the Kingdom of Crisis. Amidst the chaos of the northern border, Duke Alan watches in sheer horror, his voice cracking as he screams in disbelief. The earth trembles as a legion of zombies rises, marching relentlessly toward them. The Duke realizes the situation is hopeless. Their numbers defy all logic. Worse yet, they bring with them the nightmare poison mist, a fog of certain death. "My lord, look up!" a soldier cries out in terror. Hovering above the horde is a nightmare made flesh, the legendary Death Knight, Dullahan. Despair sinks in. Not even the 10 High Knights, the greatest defenders of the living, could guarantee a victory against a monster of that caliber. The soldier's voice shakes with fear. "We cannot win with our current strength. We must retreat and regroup, or we will be slaughtered." "Impossible!" Duke Alan roars back. "The walls are shattered. If the gate falls, our kingdom is finished. We hold this line today, no matter the cost." Suddenly, a gust of wind tears through the battlefield. A crimson cape flutters violently as a lone young man charges straight into the jaws of death. "Who is reckless enough to charge alone?" Alan shouts. A soldier squints through the chaos, realization dawning on his face. "I know him. It's the reinforcements from the Southern Rocks family, the eccentric warrior who fights only with daggers." The soldier panics. Is he insane? His opponent is Dullahan. A mere dagger can't scratch, but before he can finish, the weapon plunges deep into the undead general. Shing! The blade sinks in, slicing through the indestructible body of the Death Knight like butter. Duke Alan gasps, wondering if his eyes are deceiving him. How? The question hangs in the air, heavy with shock. How is such power possible? Yuren unleashes a storm of blades. Each dagger that strikes a zombie doesn't just cut, it melts them, dissolving the monstrous horde with holy light. The soldiers whisper, "Is he a saint sent by the gods?" Yuren scoffs internally at their awe. "Saint? Hardly. I just hoarded every body-enhancing elixir I could find for myself." Rewind to 6 months earlier. The young man jolts awake in a strange bed. Before he can process his surroundings, a figure approaches the young master. Yuren lifts his heavy head. A beauty, he thinks. But her attire is odd, and the massive sword strapped to her waist screams danger. The woman, a maid named Erin, looks concerned. "Young master, how are you feeling?" "I was about to summon the high priest." Yuren reaches out, desperate for answers. "Wait, I just need to ask," but she has already turned and vanished out the door. He struggles out of bed, confused by the heaviness of his limbs. He stumbles to a mirror and freezes. A morbidly obese child stares back at him. Panic sets in. Where are my abs? Where is my handsome face? He has transformed into a spherical child. Desperate, he convinces himself, this must be a nightmare. If I sleep, I'll wake up for real. He forces his eyes shut. Moments later, the priest is looming over him. The young master is finally awake. Suddenly, the door crashes open. A furious man storms in. "You bastard! The disgrace who sullied our family name has finally decided to wake up." The priest steps in to shield him. "My lord, please. He has only just regained consciousness. The punishment can wait." The lord grumbles, his anger barely contained. "I beat him until he was unconscious, yet he looks perfectly fine? How is that possible? His mind is stable and his wounds have miraculously healed." The priest reports with a sigh of relief. The lord spits on the ground. "I'd prefer he died. Attempting to assault his own fiancée? He is a beast. He is 19 years old. It is time he grew up. Even your younger brother has awakened his aura. But you, the eldest son, still fat, lazy, and without a shred of magical energy." Yuren listens, jaw dropped in shock. The lord points a trembling finger. "Once you can walk, you will crawl to her and beg for forgiveness." "Her?" Yuren stammers. "Yes, Ilya," his father roars. "If she doesn't forgive you, you will wish you were still in a coma. Do you understand?" The lord turns away, mourning his fate. "Why must my bloodline be cursed with such disgrace?" Yuren trembles, his mind racing. "Wellington. Rocks?" The name triggers a memory. "Wait, am I a Wellington Rocks?" The lord spins around, eyes blazing. "You dare call me by my name?" Asterisk smack. Asterisk, a heavy hand slaps Yuren across the face. "Audacious brat." The beating continues for several agonizing seconds, the room filling with the sounds of impact as the large boy takes the hits. The priest tries to restrain the lord, but fury has taken over. Yuren shuts his eyes tight. "This can't be real. Wake up. Wake up." Silence returns. He opens his eyes, gasping. He is still in the room. The dream didn't end. Erin the maid leans in. "Are you finally with us, Erin?" Yuren tests the name. She pauses, confused by his sudden lack of arrogance. "Yes, young master?" Yuren swallows hard. Am I stuck here because I messed with Ilya and got knocked out? Aaron nods slowly. Yes. But why are you speaking so politely all of a sudden? Yuren ignores the question. Did I really get beaten that badly? To be precise, Aaron clarifies coldly. You assaulted Lady Ilya, and she beat you until your soul left your body. Yuren buries his face in his hands. My life is over, he screams. Aaron watches, perplexed. I am absolutely screwed. The terrifying truth settles in. He hasn't just transmigrated, he is trapped inside the web novel he wrote. But he isn't the hero. He is the trash villain, the disgrace of the family, destined to die a miserable death. This cannot be my fate. Aaron tries to calm him. Young master? But he continues to freak out. This isn't a webtoon, it's real. He yells, words the maid cannot comprehend. Yuren stares down at his new vessel with utter disdain. It is a heap of useless garbage void of talent, stripped of skill, and lacking even a shred of effort, surviving solely on the rotting scraps of his family's prestige. His past is a humiliating script, losing his fiancée to the so-called hero, attempting a pathetic ambush for revenge, and ending up brutally beaten into the dirt once again. And finally, the ultimate indignity, dying like a stray dog in a nameless, filth-ridden alley. Yuren wonders how he can possibly survive in this unforgiving reality. It is a fantasy world, yes, but he is trapped in a grotesque, obese frame with absolutely no knowledge of its capabilities. However, a spark of hope ignites. He possesses knowledge. The protagonist lacks the locations of hidden encounters and legendary items waiting to be claimed. Resolve hardens his gaze. He attempts to sit up, intending to prepare immediately, but gravity is a cruel mistress. His shifting center of mass and heavy flesh fight against his every movement. Erin enters, her voice laced with concern. Is the young master all right? Yuren scoffs. Certainly not. But as he looks at her, the world shifts before his eyes. She insists he needs rest, but he barely hears her. The protagonist realizes why he frowned earlier. He was blind before, but now the truth is written in the air. A holographic system screen hovers beside Erin. It lays her soul bare. Swift sword, clear mind mirror, and aura adaptation. Her potential is limitless. Young master? She calls out again, snapping him back. Yuren shakes his head, dismissing the moment. I was just out of my mind for a few seconds. I am fine. Go attend to your duties. Erin bows, accepting the dismissal, and turns to leave. The protagonist's eyes bore into her retreating figure, analyzing every step. His mind races, fixated on the trait, swift sword. Originally, Erin was a warrior far surpassing regular knights in talent. But the burning question remains. Why is her affinity standing at a perfect 0? Is this some twisted dating simulation brought on by his past gaming addiction? He needs to understand the architecture of this universe. What kind of world building is ruling his fate? Considering Yuren's trashy reputation, a non-negative affinity is a miracle in itself. But he pushes that thought aside. There are more pressing matters. He drags himself to the mirror, waiting for his own system window to materialize. When it finally flickers into existence, he lets out a triumphant roar. Yes! He scans his status with the eye of creation. There, gleaming among the text, is the legendary skill, 4 Heavens of the Tang Clan. He expected special abilities. But this? This is from his favorite wuxia webtoon. The very art he obsessed over because of the breathtakingly beautiful heroine. The Sichuan Tang Clan, masters of the shadows, unrivaled specialists in lethal poisons and hidden weaponry. The world building is a chaotic mix, but he does not care. If he can master the martial arts of the Tang Clan, his survival in this hellscape is all but guaranteed. This art hails from the most feared sect in the realm. Originating from the 4 Heavens province in wuxia lore, they are the Silent Reapers, known for 1,000 poisons and the art of invisible assassination. Why does a wuxia skill exist in a medieval fantasy setting? It defies logic, but the implication is clear. He has the power to unlock god-tier abilities. Elsewhere, Wellington paces the corridor until Erin approaches her liege. He asks the heavy question, has my son awakened? The girl nods in confirmation. Wellington's brow furrows. How does he look? Erin hesitates before replying. He does not seem completely recovered yet, my lord. He collapsed just trying to stand, she reports. His general physical condition is deplorable, Wellington sighs. Father Io said the wound wasn't deep, but Erin presses on. The young master seems strange. Before, if told to beg Ilya for forgiveness, he would have thrown a violent tantrum. But now, Erin continues, he just accepted it. His personality hasn't shifted, but it was as if he was stunned into silence. Tomorrow, the rage will return, Wellington predicts. He will be screaming for revenge against Ilya. Erin offers a sliver of hope. Perhaps the young master will gradually improve. Wellington turns away, disgust etched on his face, leaving the girl shaken. Even I, his own father, have given up on him. he mutters coldly. But the girl holds on to her conviction. He should feel guilt for the girl he wronged, yes, but she deserves to live her life as a knight. She wonders how burdensome it must be to serve beneath such a man. Yet, Erin shakes her head. No. Today, the young master was different. There was a shift in the air that defied explanation. Earlier, Erin had shouted in confusion, "What are you saying?" The protagonist had simply replied, "I just want to exercise a bit. Show me the way." She had questioned him, stunned. "You are really going to train? Now?" Yuren had looked her in the eye. "Is there a problem?" His eye of creation reveals the stats, but the path to unlocking the Sichuan Tang Clan's martial arts remains a mystery. Perhaps this cursed obesity is the seal blocking his power. For now, he has no choice but to grind through physical exercise until the path opens. Yuren groans internally. This mansion is a labyrinth, the size of several stadiums, and merely walking has him gasping for air. If he tries to exercise in the comfort of his room, the laziness will consume him, and the fat will return. He needs to sever his ties with comfort immediately. Every servant he passes looks at him with visceral disgust. But remembering the monster Yuren used to be, he cannot blame them for their hatred. They trudge on. Yuren wheezes, "Are we close yet?" Erin nods. "We are almost there, young master." They arrive at the third training center, a desolate place. The elite knights occupy the first and second halls, leaving this one to gather dust. Suddenly, Yuren freezes. A figure blocks his path. The system screams a warning. Affinity -91. Probability of death? Imminent. The man is Rhea. His voice drips with sarcasm as he calls out, "What brings the young master to my training hall?" Yuren recognizes the threat instantly. The man throws his head back in a mocking laugh. "It is an honor that the young master still remembers a nobody like me." Yuren flinches, his eyes locking onto the man's sword hand. Panic rises. He suddenly shouts for his guard. "Erin!" Something dark clearly happened between these two in the past. Erin's voice cut through the silence. "Have you forgotten, young master? Years ago, when the Marquis demanded you train, you didn't just refuse. You humiliated Ray, calling a knight a mere squire in your blind rage." Ray simply laughed, swinging his blade with effortless grace. "That was the day the Marquis finally lost hope, abandoning all attempts to discipline you." Yuren scoffed, the memory bitter on his tongue. Hopeless. He side-eyed his reflection. That past version of him was indeed a piece of trash. But things had changed. He needed privacy to awaken his true power. "Is there another facility?" Yuren asked, his gaze sharp. "I require a training hall where I can be completely alone." Erin hesitated. "There is the fourth hall, but it is remote, and the equipment is practically scrap. No one has set foot there in ages." "Perfect," Yuren declared, a determined glint in his eyes. "If I am to shed this weight and be reborn, I need isolation. Take me there." The bodyguard nodded, sensing his resolve. "As you wish, young master. Follow me." By the time they reached the dilapidated fourth hall, Yuren was gasping for air, sweat drenching his heavy frame just from the walk. His eyes locked onto a dusty table of equipment. Asterisk. The Tang Clan of Sichuan, masters of the hidden weapon. Asterisk. He grabbed a dagger, focusing on the distant targets. It was time to test his legacy. Yuren raised the blade to eye level, his stance mimicking the ancient forms. With a roar of exertion, he channeled every ounce of his strength and unleashed the weapon. Asterisk. Clang. Asterisk. The dagger pitifully bounced off the floor, nowhere near the target. Yuren cursed under his breath. "Damn it. I thought the muscle memory would unlock the system." Suddenly, a presence pricked his senses. Erin was still watching. He quickly straightened up, feigning nonchalance, just testing the balance. Mere play. Asterisk. "I need a foundation before technique." Asterisk, he realized. "I'll start with laps to build stamina," he ordered. "Leave me. I train alone from here." Meanwhile, Marquis Wellington sat in disbelief. He went to the training grounds, and he's actually trying? The report seemed impossible given his son's slothful history. It was an anomaly. The Marquis narrowed his eyes, skepticism weighing heavy in his voice. "Let us see how long this sudden burst of motivation lasts." 3 weeks later. The reports were consistent. Yuren hadn't stopped for a single day. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. The excess weight was melting away. Stripped of the fat that had hidden his features, a true Rux bloodline beauty emerged. He was becoming undeniably handsome. Back in the main castle, Yuren inspected his reflection. Asterisk. "I've definitely slimmed down." Asterisk, he thought, touching his jawline. Asterisk. "But is it enough?" Asterisk. Yet, the Tang Clan's secret arts remained sealed. Asterisk, "I'll give it 1 more week." Asterisk, he resolved. Asterisk. "If the system doesn't respond, I'll have to steal the original protagonist's lucky encounters to survive." Asterisk. "Dinner is served, young master," Erin announced, entering with a tray. Yuren nodded, gratitude in his voice. Thank you, Aaron. On the tray sat a bowl of shiring soup, a nutrient-dense concoction famous for shredding fat and building muscle, the ultimate warrior's fuel. Yuren stared at the bowl with disdain. This again? Aaron raised an eyebrow. Tired of it? Tired? Yuren sighed. I haven't tasted anything else for 21 days straight. Aaron's expression hardened. Young master, ask yourself, do you merely wish to be thin, or do you desire the path of a knight? A knight, Yuren answered without hesitation. Then eat, Aaron countered. In this territory, even the mighty Marquis consumes shiring soup after every session. It is the fuel of power. If you want strength, stop your whining, she chided, pushing the bowl forward. Finish it. Every drop. Yuren grumbled but accepted his fate. Asterisk, live and learn, I guess. Asterisk, he thought, eyeing the gloopy mixture. Asterisk. Though what kind of barbaric custom forces this slop on royalty? Asterisk. Still, he couldn't deny the results. The fat was vanishing. With a resigned sigh, he prepared to choke it down. He lifted the spoon to his lips but paused. A strange sensation tickled his senses. The aroma. It was slightly off. He took a sip. The taste was wrong. Suddenly, a blue holographic screen exploded into view. Warning. Lethal poison ingested. Panic flared, but then a second notification chimed. Hidden condition met. The words glowed gold before his eyes. Condition. Consuming poison. Legacy unlocked. Sichuan Tang Clan arts. Yuren froze, stunned. To think the legendary poison arts required actually being poisoned to activate. Elsewhere in the castle, a heavy knock echoed against the Marquis's study door. Enter, Wellington commanded, his voice deep and authoritative. It was Ka, his second wife, gliding in with a porcelain tea set. I brought refreshments, dear, she purred, glancing at the papers on his desk. What has captured your attention so thoroughly? Wellington quickly covered the documents. Nothing of import, he lied smoothly. I was merely admiring the view of the garden. I've been tending to it personally. Kay smiled, but her tone shifted as she wrapped her arms around him. But enough about flowers. When will you announce Colin as your heir? You promised it would be soon. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The decision is made, isn't it? Why delay the inevitable? Wellington stiffened, gently peeling her arms away. Ka, patience. These matters require timing. It cannot be done today. Why? Ka's eyes flashed with irritation. You said last month was the time. Wellington sighed, meeting her gaze. You know why. You've heard the rumors about Yuren. The boy has finally awakened. He is training, changing. And remember, Ka, he is still the first son of House Rux. If this change is genuine, he has the birthright. Ka's expression tightened, concealing her panic. Yes, I have heard the servants gossiping. She forced a smile, masking her venom with concern. I was worried about him. If he has truly recovered, that is, a relief for you, my husband. She chuckled softly. To think all it took was a beating from his fiancée to wake him up. But, her eyes narrowed. What does this mean for the succession? It has only been 3 weeks, the Marquis mused, tapping the desk. We must observe him a while longer. His gaze turned steely. But mark my words, if Yuren reverts to his slothful ways even for a moment, the title of heir goes to Colin immediately. Very well, Ka said, turning to leave, her mind already racing with dark schemes. Finish your work, darling. I shall retire for the night. The heavy doors slammed shut behind her. Leaving the Duke's chambers, she bit her lip until it nearly bled, trembling with rage. Yuren, she hissed into the empty hallway. Just you wait and see. Meanwhile, back in the safety of his own quarters, the protagonist couldn't suppress a grin. The notification he had been waiting for finally chimed. He had done it. The skill was unlocked. He recalled the lore clearly. The legendary Sichuan Tang family specialized in deathly toxins. The only way to inherit their power was to ingest poison. His eyes narrowed as he inspected the soup on his tray once more. A small system icon hovered ominously over the broth. Curiosity piqued. He focused his intent on it. The interface responded immediately, the text scrolling down to reveal the grim ingredients hidden within. There it was. The Hyanggang herb, a potent paralytic agent. A thrill of excitement shot through him, but his pause didn't go unnoticed. Aaron, his guard, tilted her head in confusion. Young master, is something wrong with the meal? Nothing at all, Yuren replied smoothly. With a calm smile, he lifted the spoon. He brought the tainted broth to his lips and swallowed without flinching. As the flavor settled on his tongue, his mind raced. Who would dare attempt this? The original Yuren might have fallen victim to such a scheme, but he was cut from a different cloth. He wouldn't be defeated by a little poison. The narrative flow had shifted. Ripples were appearing in the timeline. Now that he analyzed the plot, a key event from the original story was noticeably missing. He pictured his father standing beside Colin. By all rights, The Duke should have officially named Colin as the heir by now. Yet, that announcement never came. Was it because Yuren had finally started his training? Regardless of the politics, the source of this seasoning was obvious. It had to be them. With a smirk, he tipped the bowl and drained the very last drop of poison. Asterisk ding. Asterisk. A holographic screen materialized instantly. The system flashed a crimson alert. Conditions met. Weak paralysis. Poison ingested. Yuren set the empty bowl down with a satisfied sigh, putting on a performance. Delicious, he announced loudly. It's so good, it almost brings tears to my eyes. Aaron blinked, visibly shocked by his sudden enthusiasm. Yuren turned to her, his expression turning serious. I need some time alone. You may go. Understood, the bodyguard bowed, though concern lingered in her eyes. Please get some rest, young master. I will see you at dawn. The moment the door clicked shut, the act dropped. Yuren strode to the mirror, his reflection staring back with intensity. It was time to claim the legacy of the Sichuan Tang Clan. Creator's Eye, activate, he commanded. The system interface expanded, thrusting his status window into view. His synchronization rate had dipped to 97%. Smart interface as always, Yuren muttered. Focusing on the flashing plus icon, a new tree of possibilities bloomed before him. Poison arts, martial arts, and hidden weapon mastery. He tapped the poison tab first. The weak paralysis resistance was active, a reward for the soup. But there was a problem. He possessed the resistance, but zero internal technique to wield it. There has to be more, the protagonist hissed. He scrolled frantically through the list of poisons, searching for the foundation of the clan's power. At the very bottom lay the ultimate technique, invisibility. But this was a leveled system. He couldn't run before he learned to walk. The initial skills had to be unlocked first. Even to utilize the most basic paralysis ability, he needed a vessel. He needed a way to cultivate energy. It made perfect sense. The Tang Clan didn't just mix chemicals. They used internal energy to store and manipulate venom within their own bodies. He switched tabs to the martial arts section. 3 paths lay before him. The black poison arts, the thunder needle scripture, and finally, the divine energy of 10,000 poisons. Too easy, Yuren scoffed. For a wuxia fanatic like him, the choice was obvious. The black poison arts were limited, purely focused on toxicity. The thunder needle specialized only in hidden weapons. But the divine energy of 10,000 poisons? It was a slow burner, harder to master, but it enhanced everything times poison, weapons, and body cultivation. I choose the divine energy, he declared without hesitation. Instantly, the system responded. A surge of foreign power began to flood his veins. Unbelievable, Yuren gasped, clutching his chest. He didn't just learn it, he times it. The ancient mantras and circulation pathways were being carved directly into his brain. He couldn't waste a second. He stripped off his shirt and assumed the lotus position on the bed. Focus, he whispered, guiding the gathering energy toward his dantian. A strange, ethereal sensation washed over him, flowing like a river beneath his skin. This was it. This was qi. He guided the torrent through his meridians, compressing it drop by drop into his energy center to build his foundation. Time lost all meaning until the morning sun broke through the window. His eyes snapped open. Incredible, he breathed. Those martial arts novels weren't lying about cultivating all night without sleep. This was reality, yet he felt no fatigue. Instead, his body hummed with raw power, every muscle fiber charged and revitalized. The flow of qi extended his senses beyond his physical form. He closed his eyes and smiled. He could feel the presence of birds outside the window without even looking. A comforting warmth pulsed in his dantian. He didn't need a mirror anymore. Focusing his mind, the status window appeared in his mental vision. Divine energy of 10,000 poisons, 1 star. Suddenly, his senses spiked. A familiar aura was approaching the door. He tracked the movement perfectly until the handle turned. Erin stepped in, her voice soft. Young master, I've come to wake you for... She froze. The bed was pristine. The young master stood there, fully alert, looking as if he hadn't slept a wink. Did you stay up all night? She asked. It just happened. Yuren shrugged. That is not healthy, she scolded gently. We should skip training today so you can rest. Absolutely not, Yuren countered, stepping forward. I'm going. I've never felt better, he insisted, his eyes shining with vitality. I need to move. Erin sighed, realizing she couldn't stop him. Very well. I'll prepare breakfast immediately. As she turned to leave, her gaze lingered on his bare torso. Since when did the young master have such defined muscles? The training grounds were quiet. Yuren approached the weapon rack, fingers brushing against the cold steel. Let's see if it's true, he muttered. He gripped a dagger, but as he took his stance, the world shifted. A digital overlay snapped into existence. A glowing crosshair locked onto the target's center, exactly like a first-person shooter game. A predatory grin spread across his face. With this system assistance, missing was simply not an option. While Aaron watched in stunned silence, Yuren moved. The dagger left his hand, trailed by a streak of ominous purple aura. Asterisk. Thud. Asterisk. Dead center. I really did it, he whispered, feeling the power surge. The system chimed in confirmation. The path of the Tang Clan was open. The hidden weapons of the system were now unleashed. Arin cried out to her young master, shock written all over her face. What was that move just now? Yul shrugged, feigning ignorance. Beats me. Maybe last month's hellish training is finally paying off. No way, she stammered, her jaw practically hitting the floor. That's impossible for a beginner, Yul smirked internally. Asterisk. I've never seen her lose her cool like that. Asterisk. A mischievous thought crossed his mind. Shall I show you again? He gripped the cold steel of the dagger once more. As he took his stance, he felt a surge of heat rising from his dantian. Asterisk. The internal energy is flowing perfectly. Faster, stronger. Asterisk. Asterisk. Whoosh. Asterisk. With a flick of his wrist, the dagger flew true, burying itself deep into the target. Asterisk. Crack. Asterisk. The wooden target didn't just split. It shattered completely. Arin stood frozen in disbelief, while Yul maintained his innocent, playful smile. Asterisk. It's just like the system interface. Asterisk. Yul thought with satisfaction. Asterisk. With this auto-aim, it's basically using a wall hack in real life. Asterisk. It made sense. Back on Earth, he wasn't just a nobody. He was the legendary champion of the FPS battle attack, the undisputed god of the internet cafe tournaments. What kind of power is that? Arin whispered. Yul ignored the question, turning to her. Do I feel different to you? Well, yes, she admitted, scanning his physique. You've slimmed down significantly since yesterday. Is that all? Yul pressed. Just weight loss? You have been training daily and drinking the Kirin medicinal broth, Arin reasoned. That's to be expected. But, today, she hesitated, sensing something off. The change is drastic. Your presence feels different. Yul narrowed his eyes. Asterisk. Interesting. Can she not feel the internal energy radiating off me? Asterisk. The realization hit him. Asterisk. In this world, I'm the only one who wields internal energy. To them, it's invisible. An undetectable superpower. Asterisk. He chuckled darkly. Let's keep going then. Asterisk. Thwack. Thwack. Asterisk. Two daggers hit the bullseye instantly with terrifying ease. Now for a real trick. He threw again. Asterisk. Clang. Asterisk. The third dagger split the handle of the previous one. A perfect Robin Hood shot. Perfect, he declared, leaving his guard speechless. Young master. May I try? Arin asked, stepping forward. She gripped a dagger, her eyes narrowing with focused calm. She threw with all her might, and missed completely. The blade clattered uselessly to the side. Some things require natural talent, Yul teased. Arin pouted, visibly frustrated. Suddenly, Yul's eyes widened. A glowing blue system window materialized right above her head. Skill unlocked. Direct slash. Asterisk. Oh? Asterisk. Yul read the description. Asterisk. Executable with any weapon? Now that is broken. Asterisk. Let me test something, Yul muttered. Arin, still fuming over her miss, frowned. Test what? It clearly doesn't work for me. Just step aside. He looked around and picked up a splintered wooden sword from the ground. Young master, what are you doing with that trash? Yul ignored her. He raised the broken blade high. Energy surged from his dantian, flooding into his arms like a roaring river. Direct slash. Asterisk. Boom! Asterisk. The wooden sword struck the target with the force of a cannonball, obliterating it and shattering the stone wall behind it. What was that? Arin cried out, trembling. What kind of monstrous power is this? Yul shrugged casually. Just practice, Arin. Just practice. That was definitely not just practice, she retorted, sweat forming on her brow. Yul's expression turned serious. Listen, Arin. I know you report my progress to my father, but I need a favor. Keep this power a secret, just for a while. Rin hesitated. But, I'm testing my limits. Yul cut in. I'll explain everything later. Just wait for me. She looked into his eyes, seeing a new authority there. She sighed, bowing her head. As you wish, young master. Evening fell. The household staff bowed out. Good work. See you tomorrow. Among them was a servant named Piru, who nodded quietly and turned to leave. As Piru walked away, Yul watched his retreating back. The playful smile vanished, replaced by the cold gaze of a predator. Creator's eye activated. The status window flared. Name, Piru. Affinity, 0. Hidden skill, poison touch, agility, high. Asterisk. So, it was you. Asterisk, Yul thought, his eyes narrowing. Asterisk. The rat putting poison in my food. I've found you. Asterisk. Time for a live experiment, Yul whispered. A spectral arrow materialized in his hand, locked onto the traitor's back. He chanted the paralysis invocation. Mana crackled at his fingertips, descending like an invisible net. Down the hall, Piru froze, sensing a sudden, unnatural chill. My body, Piru wheezed, unable to move a muscle. Yul emerged from the shadows like a grim reaper. Test successful. Duration, 1 hour. Plenty of time, Yul muttered, hoisting the paralyzed man over his shoulder like a sack of rice. Asterisk. Thud. Asterisk. Yul dumped him in a secluded cellar. Piru groaned, terror filling his eyes as the pain set in. Wakey, wakey, Yul said coldly. Do you have any idea who I am? Yul asked, his voice dripping with ice. Piru trembled violently. If you want to live, Yul warned, you'll answer me honestly. Did you poison my soup? You can't speak, so listen closely. Blink once for yes, twice for no. Yul leaned in, his killing intent filling the room. Understand? Piru blinked once. Good, Yul hissed. Now, were you the one who spiked my food? Piru stared at the demon before him. Blink. Was the poison the Hanyang herb? Yul pressed. Piru flinched, fear spiking in his veins. Blink. Last question, Yul whispered, his eyes glowing in the dark. Was it Marquis Ka who sent you? Yuren narrowed his eyes, surprised by the answer. The man was still trying to deny it? Listen closely, Yuren warned, his voice dipping into a cold threat. Lying shortens your lifespan. I can see everything. Now, I will ask one more time. Was it Lady Jia who gave the order? Terror seized Baru's heart. He shook his head violently, denying the accusation a second time. Asterisk, he isn't lying. Asterisk, Yuren realized, but he needed absolute control. Fine, eat this. He tossed a pill to the assassin. It is the initial poison. Swallow it. The man gulped it down without hesitation. From this moment, Yuren declared, you have exactly 1 month to live. If you do not receive the antidote I possess within 30 days, your internal organs will melt. For the sake of your life, you will follow my orders. Do you understand your position? Yuren asked. Baru nodded frantically, sweat dripping from his brow. Yuren reached out, tapping the man's acupoints to dispel the paralysis. You may move and speak now. Baru collapsed, gasping for air. Now, Yuren said, his gaze piercing. I will ask for the final time. Who sent you? Trembling, Baru finally broke. It was the Knight Commander, Karak of House Levantine. He gave the order, the assassin stammered. The young master must lose his life as a soldier before the year ends. Asterisk. Lady Jia's older brother. Asterisk. Yuren mused. Asterisk. A commander appointed through nepotism. Nothing more. Asterisk. Dismissing the thought, he handed a piece of paper to his new pawn. Tell me, Yuren asked, watching closely. Are these not all poisons? Asterisk. Few people possess knowledge of such toxic herbs. Asterisk, he thought. Someone with your skills can find these on the black market, Yuren instructed. Take Karak's blood money and put it to good use. Bring me everything on that list, starting with what you already have. I need them by tomorrow night. Baru blinked, confused. Young master, why do you need such deadly toxins? Yuren's eyes flashed. When did I give you permission to question me? The subordinate flinched, bowing his head instantly. I understand. Go. Quickly, Yuren commanded. He turned back. And one more thing. From today on, ensure my medicinal soup contains a heavy dose of hang-in grass. Baru's jaw dropped, shock written all over his face. Back in the safety of his room, Yuren sighed. Quote, Asterisk incredible. Martial arts are truly terrifying. Asterisk, he smirked. Asterisk. And he actually fell for the initial poison bluff. It was just a handful of weeds. Asterisk. Asterisk. But the danger is real. Asterisk, he thought. Asterisk, I must quickly master the Tang Clan's 4 heavenly arts. Asterisk. Asterisk. If I deviate from the original history, catastrophe will engulf the world. Asterisk. 24 hours later, Baru returned. Young master, I have secured every poisonous herb available. Yuren inspected the haul on the table. Good. Here we have hang-in grass, the reverse green creeper, and, the crow ink leaf. Baru stared in disbelief. How? How do you know them by sight? These are rare toxins. Basic knowledge, Yuren lied smoothly, hiding the fact that his status window revealed all. More importantly, why use the others? Wouldn't hang-in grass be sufficient? Baru shook his head. Hang-in takes too long, Baru explained, and victims develop resistance. But if mixed with the green creeper, the toxicity amplifies tenfold. Yuren nodded. Combined poisons. Stronger lethality. Harder to detect. Where did you learn this dark art? Yuren asked. I was sold to House Levantine at 8 years old, Beru muttered. A poison master trained us. There were 20 children in the pit. I am the only one breathing today. Asterisk. Without a natural affinity for poison, he wouldn't have lasted a week, asterisk Yuren realized. Asterisk. And he holds no love for that family. Asterisk. He had found a useful tool. You have done well, Yuren said. That is all for today. Rest well, young master. As the door clicked shut, Yuren's expression hardened. Asterisk. It is time to begin. Asterisk. He stared at the pile of lethal herbs. Without hesitation, he lifted the deadly cocktail to his lips. Nausea slammed into him. He gagged, fighting the urge to vomit. Asterisk. System alert. Deadly toxins ingested. Danger imminent. Begin meditation to ascend to level 2. Asterisk. Gritting his teeth, Yuren forced himself into a lotus position, focusing every ounce of will to survive. Another day dawned. A soft knock echoed. Young master? Ara called out. It is morning. She entered and froze. The usually lazy young master was sitting upright on the bed, deep in meditation. Her eyes went wide. Asterisk. What on earth has happened to his body? Asterisk. Asterisk success. Asterisk Yuren opened his eyes. He had reached the 2-star realm, acquired the draconic treasury art, and absorbed 3 distinct poisons. A triumphant smile curled his lips. Young master, are you all right? Ara stepped closer, then wrinkled her nose. Ew. What is that terrible smell? Yuren simply scratched his head. Unbothered. Asterisk. Just as the texts say. Asterisk. Asterisk. When internal energy breaks a bottleneck, the body purges its deepest impurities. Asterisk. A bit ripe, isn't it? I should open a window, he laughed. Absolutely not. Ara cried, grabbing his arm. You are going straight to the bath. With the morning sun rising, the maid dragged her stinking master toward the bathhouse. Yuren chuckles to himself. He is mastering the draconic steps, the supreme evasion technique of the legendary Tang Clan. It feels surreal. To think he is wielding a power that should only exist within the pages of a fantasy novel. Deciding to mimic the footwork, his walk becomes erratic. Erin calls out to her young master, bewildered by his sudden, drunken-like stumbling. I'm fine, don't worry, he laughs, weaving side to side. Erin isn't convinced. Young master, are you sure you are all right? He brushes off her concern. They are heading to Training Hall 1, the beating heart of the family's military power. Yuren assures her once more. He is merely curious to witness how the knights train, and she has no need to fret over him. We are almost there, Erin warns, tension creeping into her voice. Steel clashes against steel. The knights train relentlessly, swinging their blades with ferocious intensity. Suddenly, one pauses, recognizing the servant of the eldest young master, but their eyes lock onto the figure behind her. Who is this handsome stranger? Shock ripples through the crowd. Is that the trash noble? How did he shed so much weight? What kind of dark magic turned a nobody into this sculpture of a man? Yuren ignores their whispers. It doesn't matter if they try to keep their voices down. Thanks to his internal energy, every hushed insult rings loud and clear in his ears. Erin points out a focused apprentice in the hallway. His posture is flawless, a future master in the making, destined to rise above his rank. He practices the foundation of rock swordsmanship. Erin suggests the young master observe him closely. Yuren's eyes narrow. That is Clyde. A key character from the original story destined to become the protagonist's greatest ally. A hidden gem whose legend has not yet begun. As Clyde swings his sword, Yuren smiles. It is interesting to find him in a place like this. I will recruit him later, Yuren decides. Fate can wait. For now, these knights who dared to look down on him will serve as his lab rats. First test. The chain. His gaze locks onto a purple-haired knight. The target is chosen. Asterisk. Snap. Asterisk. The curse activates. The knight collapses instantly, knees hitting the dirt. Comrades rush in, panic rising. Is it your stomach? Do you need a latrine? No, the man gasps, drool spilling from his mouth as he fights the agony. He writhes on the ground while the knights scream for a priest. But suddenly, silence. The pain vanishes without a trace. The squad leader scowls. What is the meaning of this? The pain. It's gone. The knight stammers. The leader is furious. Stop joking around. Go to the bathroom. But the knight swears the torture was real. Perfect, Yuren smirks. Next up, soul disintegration mist. Time to instill true fear and confusion. Asterisk. Boom. Asterisk. A knight recoils in terror. To his eyes, the man in front of him has morphed into a hideous demon. Erin watches in confusion as men fall to the ground, screaming for the demon to stay back. Why are they acting like that? She asks. Inside the knight's mind, a nightmare manifests demons and skeletons clawing at his soul. Just as quickly, the illusion shatters. The knights look around, trembling. What? What was that? I can't break them completely, Yuren notes. The test is a success. That's enough for today. Let's head back. So soon? Aaron asks. Yuren nods. It is too noisy here, and he plans to visit Hall 4 instead. Suddenly, a maid intercepts them. Young master, a guest has arrived. Lady Ilya Marcus is here to see you. The scene shifts. A woman stares out the window, determination in her eyes. Today, I will finally break Yuren's resistance. She turns as he enters. Her cheeks flush, not from love, but confusion. Has he arrived? She wonders, looking at the handsome man. Who are you? Earlier, when the announcement came, Yuren knew exactly who was waiting. His iron-willed fiancée. This was the fated moment she would demand to break off the engagement. In the past, Yuren would have begged and refused. It can't be helped, he thinks. Destiny has changed. Back in the room, Yuren steps forward. It is me, Ilya, he says smoothly. It has been a while. Ilya is stunned. She heard rumors of his training. But this? 2 months ago, he was unrecognizable. This transformation defies logic. I simply worked hard, Yuren says with a shrug, leaving Ilya speechless. The truth is deeper. After his past defeat, Yuren reflected on his life. He decided to rewrite his fate. Do you seek revenge? She asks, wary. No, the young man replies calmly. He bows his head. I am grateful. You woke me up. If you wish to break the engagement, I accept it without complaint. Ilya blinks, disoriented. Who? Are you really? She cannot reconcile this man with the one she knew. I am Yuren, the former trash of the Rocks family, he declares. Once again, he apologizes for the sins of his past self. Ilya is taken aback by his sincerity. Yuren thinks to himself, asterisk. To be honest, it wasn't my fault, but the fault of this body's original owner. Asterisk. The reason he begged for forgiveness was purely strategic. Ilya was far more than a simple heroine. She was the legendary Sword Queen, a prodigy whose blade would one day save the fallen protagonist and strike down the final villain. That victory would belong entirely to her overwhelming power. Even if their engagement lay in ruins, he had to salvage the relationship. He needed her as an ally. But Ilya stared down at him, her voice ice cold. Stand up. Do you truly mean those words? Yuren promised he did. But words weren't enough. Then swear it, she demanded, unleashing a terrifying aura that crushed the air around them. The pressure was suffocating. For a split second, the protagonist felt a wave of déjà vu. He had faced this overwhelming intimidation somewhere before. I won't live in the past anymore, Ilya declared, her eyes flashing dangerously. But if you break this vow, I will beat you senseless. The protagonist was baffled. In the original timeline, old times, Ilya had never shown this kind of ferocity to the main character. The crushing pressure made it hard to breathe. He muttered a chant, circulating the myriad poison divine art to counter the force. Ilya's eyes widened as Yuren slowly rose to his feet. How can you withstand my aura? She gasped. But the protagonist simply accepted her conditions, sealing the vow with a sweet, innocent smile. Caught off guard, Ilya blushed, her fierce demeanor crumbling. She turned to leave, tossing back a final warning. I'll be watching you. If you mess up even once, this engagement is over. No excuses. The protagonist watched her go, stunned that the engagement had survived at all. Meanwhile, at the Lord's castle, Wellington addressed the Sword Queen. Did you find Yuren? Have you made your final decision? The Duke asked. Ilya nodded firmly. The engagement stands. I will not break it, no matter what happens. Wellington narrowed his eyes. And your reason? Ilya hesitated. Father always said people never change, but rumors say times he times has. Her expression softened. I was curious. She had wondered if he had returned to the boy from her memories, the weak yet gentle Yuren of their childhood. But he hasn't, she admitted. He's become someone completely different. That is why I want to believe in him, just this once. Wellington raised a brow. Is that all? Yes, she affirmed. However, she added, cracking her knuckles, if he reverts to being a loser, I will beat him until he learns. Wellington chuckled. Spoken like a true warrior. Take care of Yuren. Ilya turned to leave, but the Lord urged her to remain at the estate a few days longer. She grimaced. I already told my father I was here to annul the marriage. Going back now would be awkward. Will you see Yuren before you go? Wellington asked. Ilya shook her head. No, he is training. I won't be a distraction. Time passed. Yuren found himself summoned by his father, wondering what the old man wanted now. Wellington looked him up and down, feigning ignorance. Who on earth is this? The protagonist stared blankly, missing the joke. Wellington laughed heartily. I'm kidding. You've truly worked hard, son. His expression turned serious. Do you know why I called you here? Is it regarding the start of my night training? Yuren asked. Correct, Wellington replied, eyeing him sharply. You've become perceptive. From this moment on, the Duke declared, you will learn the supreme swordsmanship of the Rock family. The protagonist didn't hesitate. Father, I have a request. He looked the Duke in the eye. I wish to learn throwing arts, not the sword. The air in the room froze. Absolutely not, Wellington snapped, rejecting it instantly. Those are vulgar tricks used by bandits and assassins, he roared. With such garbage techniques, you'll never earn a knighthood, let alone kill a low-level beast like a Borak. Yuren didn't flinch. Then let's make a bet. I will hunt a Borak using only a dagger. If you are so confident that the sword is superior, Yuren challenged, then you should have no fear wagering on it. His father scoffed at the absurdity. You are being stubborn. A warrior needs aura to crush a Borak's scales. You could practice throwing knives for a century and never scratch its hide. Then you're certain of your victory, the protagonist countered calmly. Make the bet with me. Wellington glared at his son's reckless arrogance. Fine. I will use this chance to utterly crush that stubbornness of yours. The conditions? Yuren smiled. If I kill a Borak with my dagger, I manage my own training from now on. If I fail, I will become your puppet and do whatever you command. As night fell, the protagonist analyzed his situation. It was good that Aaron kept his training secret. The real test would begin tomorrow. He calculated the force needed to pierce the beast's armor. Just to be safe, he decided to consume more poisonous herbs tonight, aiming to push his myriad poison divine body to the 3-star realm. Suddenly, a noise interrupted his meditation. He turned sharply. Young master. It was Aaron, bowing low. I bear a message from the Marquis. Tomorrow at noon. First training grounds. Yuren paused. Does Timeshe Times know about the bet? Aaron nodded grimly. Not just her. The entire estate knows. Thanks to the rumors, the whole castle is bursting with laughter. Everyone is taking bets on how fast you'll run, Aaron admitted. They say the young master will piss his pants the moment he sees the Borak. The protagonist smirked. Even now, he remained public enemy number 1. In that case, Yuren muttered, the whole world is watching. Aaron nodded grimly. The Marquis wouldn't stop halfway. The training center was packed to the bursting point. The young master sighed. The price of fame. He glanced at his servant. So, Aaron, what's your prediction for today? Today, Aaron replied with a knowing smile, is the day the young master takes the heavens. His times myriad poison divine body times technique had finally hit the 3rd star. The clock struck. The hour of judgment had arrived. Roars erupted from the stands, some cheering, others mocking. Yuren rubbed his temples. Truly embarrassing, he scoffed. The Marquis stepped forward, voice booming. Son, are you prepared? Yuren smirked. Ready? Sure. But did you have to invite the whole kingdom? Wellington stepped in, feigning innocence. I only told the wizard, my lord. Rumors fly on wings, it seems. Try not to shrink under the spotlight. The wizard raised his staff, announcing a low-rank summon. Yuren's eyes widened. Finally, he would witness real magic with his own eyes. Asterisk, crack. Asterisk, lightning tore through the sky, striking the arena floor. Smoke billowed, and from the haze, a nightmare took shape. Yuren froze. It wasn't just magic. It was his time's creation. A monster he had designed back when he was an author. Standing right there in the flesh. A Borak. A sea beast, 5 feet of pure terror. The crowd recoiled, shielding their eyes from the abomination. It was grotesque. It was horrifying. And Yuren was impressed. Perfect, he thought. Exactly how I wrote it. The Borak. A creature born from a craving for purple fish sashimi and a mind overflowing with twisted ideas. Without those limbs, it might have been cute. But now? It was a killing machine. With a guttural roar, the beast charged. Yuren didn't flinch. He simply sidestepped, slipping behind the creature like a ghost. The crowd gasped. Don't celebrate yet, the Marquis muttered. The Borak spun around, bewildered. Yuren analyzed it coldly. Just as I thought. All instinct. Zero brain power. Slower than I imagined, too. Yuren drew a dagger, the steel glinting. Let's see if your hide is as tough as I wrote it. Then, he saw it. A faint shimmer on the beast's skin. A target. The universal sign of a weak point. He didn't hesitate. Yuren whipped his arm forward, channeling his chi times into the blade. It flew true, seeking the creature's fatal flaw. Asterisk. Thud. Asterisk. The Borak convulsed, seizing up before collapsing into the dirt. Dead, on impact. The show was over before it began. Yuren frowned, dusting off his hands. One hit? I expected a bit more of a workout. Silence, then eruption. The crowd went wild. Wellington's jaw hit the floor. He actually did it, they screamed. The cheers were deafening. The young master had slain the beast. But a thunderous voice cut through the noise. You little brat. How on earth did you pull that off? Yuren shrugged casually. I just aimed for the soft spot. Simple geometry. The Marquis turned purple. Bullshit. A Borak doesn't fall to a rusty dagger. That's impossible. Yuren raised an eyebrow, his gaze piercing. Is the great Marquis going back on his word now? The wizard hastily stepped in. My lord! Under the arm, a scaleless patch. The young master hit the 1 in a million vitals. Pure luck, Wellington spat. Yuren smirked. Luck or skill, a bet is a bet, Wellington. One more round, the Marquis demanded, desperation in his voice. I'll raise the stakes. A new promise. Win, and I grant you any wish, guaranteed. Lose, and you crawl back to the training hall to learn fencing. Deal? Yuren's eyes lit up. A free wish? Done. The Marquis grinned. But this time, no mindless beasts. You face a knight. Do you accept? Yuren didn't blink. Bring it on. Man or beast, it makes no difference. Actually, this was perfect. He could face Commander Karox. Time to crush that man's arrogance into the dust. But no, he thought. I need to keep my hidden poison arts a secret. I'll save Karox for later. Wellington interjected, sweating. My lord, a full night is a death sentence for the boy. Let's use an apprentice. That's fair. Yuren scanned the line of soldiers. Fine. I'll pick my victim. He pointed a finger. Him, Clyde. The young man stepped forward, a heavy greatsword strapped to his back. The young master calls for you, the herald announced. Wellington scoffed. Look at him, confident he can bully a rookie. Clyde bowed. I live to serve the Lord. The Marquis leaned in, voice low. Straighten that boy out. Show him reality. Clyde turned to face his opponent. Yuren gave him a lazy, dismissive wave. The apprentice froze, totally bewildered. What's wrong? Wellington barked. Lost your nerve? No, sir. Clyde snapped to attention. I will execute the order. Yuren yawned. Relax. I'm only throwing 3 daggers. Block them all, and you win. Easy, right? Wellington bristled. Do you see this arrogance? Clyde. Teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Clyde drew his steel, dropping into a combat stance. Yuren began to circle, a predator stalking prey. The other knights jeered from the sidelines. Hey Clyde, lose this, and it's no dinner tonight, plus 100 laps. Don't embarrass us. A sweet, feminine voice cut through the noise of the crowd, declaring that the young master could actually win. Yuren paused, realizing that whoever she was, he finally had a believer in the stands. Clyde roared across the arena, announcing his readiness for combat. Yuren spun around, his expression shifting into cold focus. He gripped his first dagger, initially planning to shatter the lights and fight in darkness. But as he observed his opponent, he realized such tricks were unnecessary. Compared to the brutal duel with Borak, Clyde was riddled with openings. If Yuren struck even one of those fatal flaws, this match would end in a heartbeat. But he wouldn't end it so cheaply. Yuren hurled his first dagger, deciding to crush his opponent with a relentless frontal assault. Good! Clyde shouted, raising his greatsword to deflect the blow. But the impact forced him to stagger back 4 heavy steps, leaving the audience gasping at the thunderous noise. It sounded less like metal clashing and more like a cannon blast. Wellington froze, his eyes widening as he watched the dagger clatter to the dusty ground. He stared at the weapon in disbelief. How could an ordinary dagger carry the weight of a siege weapon? Clyde's hands trembled uncontrollably. His blade had actually been pierced by the impact. Yuren smirked, his voice dripping with arrogance. Are you warmed up yet? You've seen what happens when you drop your guard. Get ready, Yuren warned, his aura shifting. Because this time, I'm throwing everything I have. A suffocating pressure descended, making the trainee knight shake in his boots. Yuren watched him carefully. Even after that overwhelming display, Clyde didn't break. He truly had the tenacity of a main character. But Yuren refused to lose the spotlight. He decided it was time to end the games, readying his next dagger for a decisive, direct strike. Boom! The air exploded once again. Clyde desperately swung his longsword to counter, but a massive, ear-splitting collision rocked the entire arena. Dust and smoke billowed outward. As the haze slowly drifted away, the spectators leaned forward, their faces twisted in pure astonishment. The Marquis stared, unable to process the scene before him. Clyde had collapsed to his knees, trembling in terror, clutching a sword that had been snapped clean in 2. The broken metal clattered to the floor. Silence reigned. Even Marcus Wellington was left completely speechless by the display of raw power. The Marquis stood up, calling out to Yuren that they needed to speak privately. But Yuren cut him off sharply. The match wasn't over yet. I still have 1 dagger left, Yuren declared. The Marquis argued it was unnecessary, but Yuren turned his gaze to his kneeling opponent. Lift your head, Clyde. Clyde looked up slowly, his eyes meeting the young master's intense stare. Is this how you end it? Yuren demanded. Will a future knight accept such humiliation? Victory or defeat, you swing your blade until the very end. That is the way of the knight. His voice rose to a roar, echoing through the silent stadium. "I will ask you one last time," Yuren shouted. "Are you really going to give up and die on your knees?" The knight grit his teeth, muttering a curse. He screamed for a new sword, struggling to his feet as a brilliant energy began to radiate from his body. "I will not back down." The other knights gasped in shock. The Marquis's jaw dropped. How could a mere novice awaken his aura in the middle of a duel? Yuren smiled internally. It was exactly as he predicted. Clyde's berserker ability had finally manifested. Now, he could test his techniques against a worthy target. The two warriors locked eyes for a few intense seconds. Clyde raised his new blade, roaring at the young master to throw his final dagger. Wellington's mind raced, denying the reality before him. That wasn't just luck manifesting. Aura mid-battle was a talent reserved for high-ranking knights. Everyone wondered what miracle Yuren would pull next. The protagonist simply nodded, whispering, "Good." He gripped his last dagger. Channeling every ounce of his strength, he threw it, but to everyone's confusion, it flew in a completely clumsy, awkward arc. Clyde blinked, baffled by the projectile. "What is this?" he shouted, enraged. "Why is it so slow? Are you mocking me?" He swung his sword to swat the dagger away, but the weapon defied physics. It swerved past his guard, leaving Clyde bewildered. Wellington's eyes narrowed. He saw the truth. Thud! The dagger slammed into Clyde's side, nearly shattering his ribs. A scream of agony tore from the knight's throat. Clyde collapsed to the dirt. The crowd murmured in confusion. The throw looked so slow, so weak. What just happened? "Stop exaggerating," the audience whispered. They suspected Clyde was taking a dive just to please the young master, but Yuren knew the truth. That wasn't just a throw. It was embedded with internal force, delivering a payload of excruciating pain directly into the body. The Marquis called out to Yuren, a proud grin on his face. "We will talk later, son. You've definitely won the bet today." Yuren cracked a satisfied smile. Clyde groaned, clutching his shoulder in agony. Yuren approached him, placing a hand on the wound. "Hold still," he said, activating his energy absorption skill. Clyde's eyes went wide as the pain vanished instantly. He looked up at the young master with awe. "Thank you. But why?" Yuren shrugged. "It was nothing." The knight bowed his head, begging for forgiveness. "I misjudged you. When that dagger flew so slowly, I thought you were looking down on me. But I was wrong," Clyde admitted, his voice trembling with respect. "That was a transcendent technique. Not even a sword master could learn such control in a short time," Clyde reasoned. You've been hiding your true power all along, haven't you?" Clyde leaned in, whispering conspiratorially. "Is there a secret faction targeting the Marquis' family? Is that why you pretended to be weak until now?" It all made sense to him now. The isolation, the trash reputation, it was a noble sacrifice to protect the family from the shadows. Yuren fought the urge to roll his eyes. This guy had a serious imagination for conspiracy theories. But Clyde continued, praising Yuren's commendable attitude in this secret war. Clyde pounded his chest, pledging his loyalty. "If you ever need my sword for your cause, young master, you just have to ask." The protagonist was stunned by the sudden spike in favorability. He accepted the offer, realizing Clyde wasn't just a simple berserker, but a warrior with a loyal heart. Clyde thumped his chest, demanding the young master's trust. He swore a solemn oath to spread the truth. He would crush the rumors that the young master was trash, and ensure every soul in the territory heard of his true power. Yuren calculated quickly. Keeping a powerhouse like Clyde close was strategic. When the time came for solo missions, having such a shield would be invaluable. Aaron praised the young master's hard work, and Yuren offered his thanks. She couldn't hide her awe, admitting she had never witnessed a technique so profound. Yuren grinned, revealing it was a brand new skill. He leaned in, eager to hear a professional knight's assessment. Aaron admitted the terrifying truth. If she had faced that move blindly, she would have lost instantly. But now that she had seen it, she was confident she could block it. Yuren knew this wasn't empty arrogance. She possessed the legendary trait Mirror of the Tranquil Mind, a rare and powerful ability. Aaron confessed she had been training as a knight since childhood. Had she not lowered her guard back then, she would have earned her knighthood long ago. Yuren asked if she was truly content, living as a butler now. Aaron blinked, completely caught off guard by the sudden weight of his question. Later that day, Marquis Wellington was resting in his office when Yuren entered, asking why he had been summoned. The Marquis sighed. "It is just the two of us. Call me father. This stiff formality is killing the mood." Yuren nodded, though he remained wary. His father cut to the chase. What was that technique? He had scoured every manual, yet that move existed in no known record. Yuren had only been training for a single month. No matter how godlike a genius might be, inventing a masterclass technique on one's own was simply impossible. The Marquis demanded the truth. Yuren knew he couldn't reveal his reincarnation secret, but he had prepared the perfect lie for this exact moment. He declared calmly that he had found an ancient book, His father's eyes narrowed in intrigue. A book, you say? Yuren spun his tale. While wandering the dusty aisles of the estate library in search of manuals, fate had guided him to a peculiar discovery. He claimed he was resting against a wall when it happened. From the highest, dustiest shelf, a tome had tumbled down as if waiting for him. No title disgraced its cover, only a cryptic, ancient symbol etched into the leather. Thinking nothing of it, he had cracked it open. A blinding light exploded forth. Knowledge drilled directly into his brain, and in the blink of an eye, the book disintegrated into nothingness. Wellington gasped. That describes a magic tome. Yuren nodded solemnly. He explained that a magic tome was a self-sealed artifact, carrying the will of a great mage to transmit their legacy to a worthy successor. The Lord accepted the theory. Even if the mechanics were a mystery, it must have been an heirloom left by their ancestors. It was a stroke of heavenly luck. Yuren smirked internally. He would treat this deception as a glorious windfall. His father stood tall. A promise is a promise. I will no longer force you into standard swordsmanship training. But there was more. As a reward for his achievement, the Marquis told him to name his desire. Yuren looked his father in the eye, his voice steady. I want the position of successor. The words hit Wellington like a physical blow. This was not a request he could grant lightly. Wellington pondered the heavy silence. Finally, he spoke. With his authority, he could force it to happen. Yuren interrupted. But if I became the heir, the backlash would be severe. The opposition would rally, and the young lady would cause endless turmoil for the family. Therefore, Yuren smiled. I will make a concession this time. His father was puzzled but quickly grateful. He thanked Yuren for his maturity and foresight regarding the family's stability. Yuren knew the truth. Being the heir meant being chained to a desk, drowning in state management and politics all day long. He needed freedom. Time to master the four heavens of the Tang Clan and roam the world to seize hidden opportunities. Wellington asked for an alternative wish. Yuren didn't hesitate. I want to form my own personal order of knights. I claim Aaron, my butler, and Clyde, the warrior I dueled today. They will be my first two blades. His father laughed. That was far easier than granting the heir's title. Besides, Aaron's talent was indeed wasted on serving tea. Do as you wish, the Marquis declared. Yuren bowed in thanks. The pieces were falling into place. The Lord asked who would serve him now, as good butlers were scarce. Yuren named Peru from the kitchens. But, father, I need you to take the heat for this promotion. Give him this chance. Wellington raised an eyebrow. Is something going on? I will explain later, Yuren replied mysteriously. His father sighed, but agreed. Yuren realized, with a shock, his father trusted him implicitly. No questions asked. He hadn't realized how high his father's favorability had climbed. Perhaps blood truly was thicker than water. Yuren stepped outside, his eyes gleaming. From this day forward, you two are the founding members of my exclusive knight order. For the time being, the regimen was brutal practical combat. Amidst the sweat and steel, they welcomed their new butler, Peru, who humbly asked to be in their care. Aaron watched the newcomer with cold, suspicious eyes. Her mind drifted back to the confrontation she had with the young master just the day before. She had demanded an explanation. Why would he replace a loyal subordinate like her with this unknown man named Peru? Moran had scratched his head, casually revealing a dark secret. He told her Peru was actually a spy, sent by Commander Karox of the White Eagle and the mysterious Miss Ka. Aaron insisted that made him even more dangerous, but Moran simply smirked, declaring that this spy had already been broken, and now answered only to him. Suddenly, Clyde stepped forward, interrupting with a query of his own. Moran nodded, granting the young man permission to speak. The aspiring knight pointed out a technicality. Even with just 2 members, they were officially a knight order, which meant they required a commander. Tradition dictated the strongest warrior should lead. However, Clyde eyed Aaron's delicate frame and small stature, clearly doubting her physical power. Puffing out his chest, he implied he should take the title. Moran agreed with the logic. The ruler of the order must be the strongest blade. Then prove it, Moran ordered. The duel began instantly, but mere seconds later, Clyde stood frozen. He admitted defeat, sweating as Aaron's sword hovered inches from his neck. Aaron didn't mince words. She told him his attack patterns were amateurish and predictable. If he didn't want to die, he needed to rebuild his skills from the ground up. Clyde swallowed his pride and bowed. He accepted the hard truth, vowing to etch her advice into his memory. Moran nodded, satisfied with the display. He officially declared Aaron the commander of their knight order, applauding her victory alongside the smiling Peru. Peru bowed, excusing himself to prepare a celebratory dinner, and just like that, the sun set on another day of growth. Later that night, Moran sought solitude. He needed to test a new technique, using internal energy not for power, but to project sound waves directly into a target's mind. It was the sound transmission art, a legendary skill from wuxia tales. He focused his intent and mentally called out to Peru. The butler spun around, answering the voice he heard clearly, but his eyes widened in confusion when he found the room completely empty. Moran repeated the name, his voice echoing inside Peru's skull. The butler began to panic, looking around wildly, completely bewildered by the invisible speaker. Moran stepped out, asking why he looked so terrified. Peru clutched his head, fearing he was going mad or had fallen victim to a dark curse. The protagonist explained it was merely a communication art. Peru sighed in relief, realizing his master was far more than a simple victim of poisoning. He had heard rumors that black mages could wield such powers. He began to suspect the young master walked a path darker than anyone realized. Moran scoffed, telling him to believe whatever nonsense he wished. He then shifted the topic to business. Was the poison he requested ready? Peru confirmed with a nervous nod. The snake's mind, a lethal concoction extracted from 100 venomous vipers, was prepared. Moran's eyes gleamed with intensity. He ordered the butler to pour a massive dose of the deadly toxin directly into the celebration soup. Peru trembled at the insane command but dared not refuse. The scene shifted to the next morning. As Moran opened his eyes from deep meditation, a heavy sigh escaped his lips. He was still stuck at the 3-star realm, his internal energy stagnating despite his relentless efforts. With the world's crisis looming, time was a luxury he didn't have. He realized he had to leave the safety of the Marquis's domain to break through his limits. Determined, he marched into the study of his father, Marquis Wellington, and bluntly announced his plans to depart. Wellington frowned, looking up from his paperwork. It had been a while since his son went out, so he assumed Moran merely wanted to visit a local town. Moran nodded vaguely. When his father asked how long he would be gone, Moran decided to hide his true destination to avoid complications. About 1 week, he lied smoothly, keeping his expression neutral. His father agreed, acknowledging his recent training, but insisted on an escort. Moran flatly refused, leaving the lord stunned by his audacity. Wellington lectured him sternly. As the eldest son of the House of Rocks, traveling alone was beneath his station and incredibly dangerous. Moran countered calmly. Since he was only going to a nearby town, a grand escort would only draw unnecessary attention and look strange. Wellington slammed his hand down. Strength wasn't the issue. He was terrified his son would be poisoned again, unaware of how cruel the outside world truly was. Moran held back a chuckle. Poison was now his fuel, not his weakness. But explaining that to a worried father was impossible. Realizing resistance was futile, he feigned agreement. Wellington calmed down and asked for the departure date. 2 days from now, Moran replied. Satisfied, Wellington began making arrangements for the guards in his study, but in his mind, Moran was already gone. An escort would be useless because he planned to vanish into the dawn tomorrow morning. As twilight blanketed the estate, Moran summoned Peru. He needed travel funds, and he knew exactly who had a stash of gold. He demanded the money Peru had received from Commander Karax for purchasing high-grade potions. He dared the butler to refuse. Peru, sweating profusely, denied any rebellion. He claimed it was an honor to hand it over to his master. Moran wasn't finished. He demanded the magical storage item he had spotted earlier, the subspace bag Peru used for carrying herbs. It was a legendary artifact straight out of fantasy lore, capable of holding a literal ton of weight in a pocket-sized dimension. Peru handed it over, looking as if his soul was being ripped away. Moran took it with a satisfied grin. Now, he was truly ready to roam the world. He tossed a vial to his pawn, a temporary reprieve. He claimed it was 1 month's worth of antidote for the poison coursing through the man's veins, a reward for good service. He told Peru he was counting on him. If this loyalty continued, the complete cure would be his. Peru's face lit up with desperate hope. The following day, just as the first light of dawn broke the horizon, Yuren knew he had to vanish before his escort arrived. He moved through the sprawling mansion like a ghost, his steps silent and practiced. Just as he calculated, the halls were empty. Silence reigned. However, a gardener spotted the young master, bowing respectfully at his early rise. Yuren offered a brief, dismissive nod in return. But something was off. A massive aura radiated from this harmless-looking old man. Yuren activated his creator's eye to scan the servant, and the status window left him stunned. Leaving the shock behind, he continued his journey. This marked his first time stepping outside the Marquis's territory since his arrival in this world. His destination loomed ahead, radiating arcane energy. The Magic Tower. A mage manning the reception desk looked up, offering assistance. Yuren didn't waste time. He needed access to the teleportation portal. The mage raised a brow, asking if he had experience with dimensional travel. Yuren shook his head. It was his first time. The receptionist chirped about a mileage loyalty program. Yuren suppressed a smile. It was exactly like an airline from his old life. Formalities done, the mage asked for his destination. Asu Castle, Yuren stated. The receptionist nodded, noting the extreme distance. The price for such a jump? A steep 50 gold. As he signed the travel papers, he winced internally at the cost. Expensive, indeed. Fortunately, he had borrowed plenty of funds from Peru for this very occasion. He signed under a fake name, Polon, his old gaming handle. Formalities complete, the mage gestured for him to follow. He was directed into a private chamber. The instructions were simple: wait for the knock, and he would be at his destination. Yuren stepped inside, admiring the intricate runic designs. Suddenly, mana crackled like lightning, striking the spire of the tower. Before he could even process the flash, a voice called out from the other side. "Welcome to Asu Castle." He was already there. Yuren blinked in confusion. He hadn't felt a thing. The attending mage smirked with pride. Seamless transport was the hallmark of their high-level magic. Yuren mulled over the sensation. Did he write the setting to be this comfortable back when he created this story? Details were blurring into reality. The mage bowed him out, urging him to use their services again. The transaction was complete. The heavy doors swung open, and a vibrant new world greeted him. He had arrived at Asu Castle. Being in the eastern region, the architecture was drastically different from the Marquis's domain. The streets were alive, bustling with a chaotic energy he hadn't seen before. First order of business, the blacksmith alley. After gathering directions from a local, he navigated the winding streets until he reached a secluded workshop tucked away in a corner. Yuren sighed. He had been scouring the area for hours, yet the legendary unicorn blacksmith remained elusive. Twilight was settling in, casting long shadows. This was his last hope. If it wasn't here, he was out of luck. Inside, the rhythmic clang of a hammer against steel rang out. A lone figure worked over an anvil. Yuren cleared his throat, calling out for attention. The blacksmith paused, wiping sweat from his brow as he eyed the newcomer. Yuren nodded in greeting but skipped the pleasantries. He had a specific question. "Do you know of a unicorn blacksmith in this district?" The craftsman shook his head. He had never heard of such a name. Yuren's heart sank. Had he misremembered the location? But then, the blacksmith muttered, "However, that is the name I plan to christen this shop with very soon." Yuren's eyes widened. He activated his creator's eye. Name, Juranox. Trait, creator of demonic weapons. A grin tugged at the corner of his lips. Bingo. He had found the hidden gem. Yuren immediately asked to see the inventory. Juranox gestured carelessly toward a wall lined with dust-covered gear. "Help yourself." Yuren scanned the weapons and armor, his gaze critical. "How's business treating you?" he asked casually. The blacksmith looked at him with confusion. Juranox scoffed. "Look where we are, end of a dead-end alley, and it's not like my skills are anything to write home about. People look, they laugh, they leave. Honestly, I don't know how much longer I can keep these doors open." Yuren listened, but his eyes told a different story. Interesting, he thought. These weren't trash, they were masterpieces in disguise. He spotted them. A wind spirit rapier that amplified attack speed. A fire spirit longsword, radiating raw strength and stamina buffs. Rare treasures. "Did you forge these?" Yuren asked. Juranox nodded solemnly. "I did, but they're failures. Useless, scrap. The moment they cooled, they became impossibly heavy," the blacksmith explained. "Not even the strongest warrior could lift them off the rack. Naturally, no one bought weapons they couldn't wield. But Yuren knew the truth. It wasn't about weight, it was about worthiness. These ego weapons only responded to their destined masters. If the right person grasped the hilt, the weight would vanish, and the power would awaken. "I'll take them both," Yuren announced. Juranox stared at him like he was mad. "They are failures." "They are perfect," Yuren countered, already picturing Aaron and Clyde wielding them. But these swords were just a bonus. They weren't the true reason he had come. "Tell me," Yuren leaned in, his voice dropping. "Do you have any weapons that are completely rusted over?" Confused, the blacksmith hesitated. Yuren didn't wait. He pointed toward a discarded box in the corner, filled with what looked like ancient, rusted junk. "I want to see that." The blacksmith stared in disbelief. Why would a noble demand such rusted scrap metal? He had fully intended to toss those aside as worthless junk, but to the young master, they were treasure. Plunging his hand into the box, the protagonist smiled. This was exactly what he had envisioned. Juranox eyed the weapon warily. He admitted he crafted it, yet it had mysteriously appeared in his warehouse the moment he arrived. Its origins were a complete riddle. He had considered discarding it as waste, yet some instinct compelled him to keep it. "I will take that dagger too," the protagonist declared. Juranox's eyes widened in sheer surprise. Since the noble only chose defective scraps, Juranox offered a deal 2 gold pieces for the lot, and the dagger as a gift. The protagonist smirked. This was the steal of the century. If these weapons' true potential were revealed, 200 gold pieces wouldn't suffice. But the steal was secondary. It was the blacksmith he truly coveted. Pointing out Juranox's failing business, he dropped the bombshell. "Close this shop. Become my exclusive private blacksmith." Juranox stammered, caught off guard. The offer was too sudden, leaving him completely speechless. He wasn't opposed to closing, but the speed was dizzying. The protagonist decided it was time to play his ace and introduce himself properly. I am the invincible spear guarding the south, Yuren of House Rocks. Hearing the name of the Marquis's young master, Gurinox froze. He instantly fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness. He never imagined a high noble would step foot in such a humble hovel. The protagonist commanded him to stand, but Gurinox hesitated, trembling. "There is no need, my lord." The smith felt safer on the floor. The protagonist sighed, realizing the man was trapped in a feudal mindset, but insisted he stand tall. Dusting himself off, Gurinox asked the burning question. "Why would a noble want to employ a lowly, talentless blacksmith like me?" "Because of your special talent," the protagonist replied instantly. The blacksmith shook his head, denying he possessed any such gift. He explained his master had trained him relentlessly every day. The protagonist mused that the man had survived a brutal, Spartangent-style education. "I visited many forges today," the protagonist said. "I have seen countless weapons, but yours are different." He saw the soul poured into the steel. The grips were meticulously crafted vital details that prevented a blade from slipping in the heat of battle. Witnessing such dedication, the protagonist knew the truth. One day, Gurinox would awaken a truly legendary crafting ability. The only question remained, could he successfully bring this hidden gem under his wing? "I will follow you," Gurinox vowed, adding, "But you aren't like the rumors say." The protagonist smirked. "You mean the rumors that I am trash?" Brushing that aside, he prepared a demonstration. "Let me show you something interesting." He placed a fingertip on the rusted dagger. He commanded it to awaken with his blood, revealing its true form, the Ain's relic of a million forms. The weapon shuddered, levitating from his palm. Gurinox gasped in awe. It radiated the overwhelming aura of a legendary ego sword. The protagonist narrowed his eyes. Originally, the hero of this world was supposed to obtain this power, not him. The system prompt flashed. "Do you wish to form a soul contract with Ain's?" He accepted immediately. The soul manifested, speaking in a bizarre, warped voice. "What the hell is this?" The spirit spat. "Who do you think you are to make a contract with me? You have zero talent." The protagonist realized the spirit was disappointed by his lack of mana, but its attitude was incredibly arrogant. "How annoying," the sword scoffed. "A punk like you actually wants to wield me? Anyway, how did you know the release enchantment?" "I heard it from a great prophet." The protagonist lied smoothly to cover his plot knowledge. Ain's was skeptical. "A great prophet spoke to a nobody like you? If you know that much, you must know what I can do." The protagonist confirmed it. Ain's was freeform equipment capable of splitting into a main and secondary body, transforming into any shape the user imagined. In the original storyline, the hero used a sword and shield combo. Even if the secondary weapon was lost, it would regenerate from the main body. "You probably don't know how to use me," Ain sneered. "I only respond to mana. Just give up now." The protagonist watched the spirit rant in silence. "You are the noisy type, aren't you?" he muttered. He pointed at the weapon, visualizing a ring. "Hot, it feels like I am melting," Ains shrieked. The protagonist smirked. His internal energy worked just as well as mana. Turning back to business, he asked, "Gurinox, how long do you need to pack up?" 2 days, the smith replied. They agreed to meet 2 days later at dusk, in the castle's central park. 2 days later. On his way to the rendezvous, a sharp voice cut through the air. "What are you doing here?" It was Ilya, leaving the protagonist bewildered. He had the exact same question. The scene before him in Central Park felt intensely familiar. Realization struck. This was the exact spot where the original protagonist first met Ilya. "What is wrong with you?" the girl demanded. The young man apologized, his mind racing. The original plot had shifted tracks. Ilya dismounted her horse, her eyes piercing. "I asked why you are here." The protagonist met her gaze, preparing his cover story. "I am just looking for a blacksmith." She found the situation peculiar. Why look elsewhere when the House of Rocks possessed endless manpower? Yuren simply smiled, explaining his desire to handpick a subordinate on his own terms. "If you had only spoken sooner," the girl sighed, a hint of regret in her voice. "I could have assisted you." But the protagonist shook his head. He had already found the perfect candidate. Footsteps crunched against the gravel as he approached. Gurinox bowed low, his voice steady and respectful. "Young master, have you been waiting long?" "Not at all," Yuren replied, dismissing the concern. "Your timing is impeccable." He turned to introduce his fiancée, Ilya, but a rough, commanding voice suddenly cut through the air, shouting for the team leader. The knights were preparing to mobilize and demanded to know the stranger's identity. Ilya beckoned the man forward, introducing Musk to her, betrothed the heir of the Rocks family. The man froze, pure terror flickering in his eyes as he repeated the name. To see a direct descendant of the Marquis Rocks bloodline in a place like this, it was absolutely unthinkable. Regaining his composure, he bowed stiffly. He identified himself as the commander of the Marcus family's 5th Night Division. Musk Malone, that was his title. The protagonist nodded politely, offering a generic greeting, though his eyes held no warmth. Yuren didn't need the introduction. He already knew everything. To put it simply, Musk was a pathetic extra from the original novel, a character defined by his boring personality and incompetence. The script played out in his mind. Musk and his knights would be blocked by children. The protagonist would intervene, and a chaotic brawl would erupt. Just as blood was about to spill, Ellie would appear to stop the madness. That was the scripted event that was supposed to spark their destiny. But the true significance lay elsewhere. In the original plot, the protagonist was meant to accompany Ilya into battle and save her from a certain death. But the original hero was nowhere to be found. Yuren clenched his fist. He had no choice. He could not allow his fiancée to lose her life today. He turned to the girl, his voice serious. "Where are you headed?" Ilya's expression darkened. The orc tides around Asu Castle were rising, and her knights had been ordered to exterminate them. Yuren met her gaze, his resolve hardening. Then, "I have a request to ask of you in this situation." He declared he would join the expedition. When Ilya questioned his sanity, the protagonist lied smoothly, claiming that as a trainee, he craved the taste of real combat to test his skills. "It will be a slaughter," Ilya warned, her eyes filled with worry. But the protagonist simply shrugged. "Don't worry. If things go south, I am exceptionally good at running away." A heavy silence hung between them as she weighed his words. Finally, she nodded. She turned to Sir Musk, ordering him to provide a warhorse for her betrothed. Musk protested immediately. This wasn't a casual outing. Even against orcs, a split second meant death. He felt zero mana radiating from Yuren. Why should he risk his life protecting a useless noble? "Sir Musk," Ilya's voice dropped an octave, cutting off his complaints. "This is a direct order. Cease your chatter and obey." Musk ground his teeth, murmuring his acceptance. He would prepare the gear, but as he turned away, a dark, murderous intent radiated from his back, clear for all to see. Yuren and Ilya exchanged a silent look. As the hours drifted by and the sun began to dip, her anxiety returned. "It is dangerous," she whispered. "Please, stay close to me." Yuren nodded simply. He glanced back at his servant. "Hold on tight, Juranox." The butler bowed. "I accept your order, young master." And so, the iron march of the army began. As they breached the danger zone, Ilya issued tactical commands. They would split into squads of 5 to scour the area for the orc village. Attack was forbidden. They were to mark the target and signal immediately. The formation broke apart, scattering into the wild. Ilya led her own unit down the center path, riding until the daylight bled out of the sky. "The tracks are fading, Commander," a soldier reported, squinting into the gloom. "Night is falling fast. What are your orders?" Ilya grit her teeth. "We have no choice. We retreat for now." But before they could turn, a sharp, piercing noise tore through the silence. A red flare burst overhead. Then another. Signals were detonating across the horizon like a chain reaction. "Report. How many signals?" Ilya demanded. 5 flares lit the sky, but Yuren counted only 4 distinct patterns. The commander made a split-second decision they would ride for the northwest desert first. They arrived in a storm of dust, but only silence greeted them. Ilya gasped. Her soldiers lay scattered across the sand, lifeless. Horror washed over the squad. The soldiers' armor had been melted into slag. How could an ambush happen so instantly? "Move!" Ilya screamed, panic edging her voice. "To the southern signal. Now!" They spurred their horses, riding with extreme haste as if the devil were at their heels. But the scene in the south was a mirror of the nightmare. Bodies everywhere. No survivors. "We must reach the next sector," a companion shouted. "No." Yuren's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "We cannot go there." "Why?" Ilya looked at him in shock, calling his name. The protagonist's eyes were cold. "The orcs are hunting us one by one. If we continue, we have 0% chance of victory." "Stop the operation," he commanded. "Fire the signal here. We must gather all remaining forces at this location immediately." "Silence," a soldier barked, glaring at the noble. "What does a sheltered brat know of military formations? This mess is happening because of a punk like you." As the insults flew, Yuren recalled the original novel. The protagonist had faced this exact accusation. The readers had raged at the sweet potato frustration of that scene, cursing the author. Just remembering those toxic comments gave him PTSD. Musk sneered, stepping forward. "You know nothing of war, boy." Yuren didn't blink. "Shut your mouth." A crushing pressure slammed Musk into the dirt. He collapsed, gasping for air. Ilya watched in disbelief, calling out to her fiancé. But Yuren ordered the subordinate to know his place. Terror replaced the arrogance in Musk's eyes. He trembled, begging for forgiveness, while the protagonist looked down at him with cold indifference. Yuren turned his gaze to Ilya. In the original story, she had ignored the warning and ridden to her doom. He would not let that history repeat itself. Yuren told her to trust her own judgment, though he wondered if they truly had time for this. Ilya conceded. If calm reasoning failed, brute force was the only option. She ordered the blue flare signal to be fired immediately to rally the troops. The signal pierced the sky, a beacon visible throughout the entire forest. Yuren waited, his presence steadying the group. Juranox looked on in awe. The young master was incredible. Every move he made seemed calculated by destiny itself. Yuren simply replied that it was nothing. The blacksmith was optimistic that soldiers would rejoin them, but Yuren's expression remained grim. He knew most of them wouldn't make it, not with times bastard Karuda hunting them down in the shadows. Juranox called out to the young master, asking what they were waiting for. Yuren's eyes narrowed. The real battle begins now. A subordinate sprinted toward them, screaming for the squad leader. Run! You have to leave now. Ilya questioned the panic, brandishing her sword toward the noise. Suddenly, the trees broke. An immense horde of orcs marched forward, an overwhelmingly massive army. Musk cursed under his breath. It was an insane number of monsters, a sea of green death. Ilya trembled, apologizing to Yuren. She felt the weight of their doom was her fault, but Yuren remained calm. It's fine. We won't lose our lives here, he assured her with absolute conviction. Ilya looked at her fiancé, wondering what hidden card he held. Yuren called upon the power of Agnes. It was time to test what he had practiced for the last 2 days, using the artificial body to create black iron pellets. This was the 3-star ability he had obtained but never tested. The black iron explosion. He tossed a small pellet toward the horde. It pinged harmlessly off an orc's axe. The monsters laughed until a blinding flash engulfed the entire area. Asterisk. Boom. Asterisk. The explosion was devastating. In a single strike, the enemy numbers were slashed significantly. Yuren waved his hand, and the black iron energy returned to him. Agnes's ability, paired with his skills, was a terrifying combination. The remaining orcs roared and charged the young man. He simply flicked another sphere forward. Asterisk crash. Asterisk. Another massive explosion turned the vanguard into dust. What did you throw? Ilya asked, breathless. Black iron spheres? Yuren replied coolly. I'll explain the details later. For now, the battlefield had changed. The number of orcs had been drastically reduced. Ilya's eyes blazed. What are you doing? We can win this. She rallied her army. Now is our chance. Wipe out the survivors. She led the charge, slicing one creature down while her subordinates combined their strength to take down another. The tide was turning. An orc watched his brethren fall, astonished. But then, he froze. He found himself face to face with a towering reddish figure. The orc looked up in sheer terror. A massive hand crushed his head like a melon. Ilya and her army spun around, sensing the murderous intent. What is that thing? Ilya gasped. The creature stood amidst the gore of its own kind. Yuren clenched his jaw. It had finally appeared. That was Karuda, the legendary orc warrior. If they didn't capture this arrogant monster today, death was the only outcome for them all. Karuda let out a roar that tormented the souls of everyone present. Bracing his massive sword, he launched himself like a missile toward Ilya. Dodge! She screamed to herself, but fear locked her limbs. Suddenly, her husband grabbed her. Why are you standing still? He yanked her out of the trajectory just as the ground shattered where she had stood. They had escaped death by a hair's breadth. Ilya was horrified, staring at the broken bodies of her subordinates. Karuda roared again, his bloodlust focused entirely on Yuren. Yuren hurled a concentrated black iron explosion directly at the beast. It zoomed toward the ogre's neck and detonated. Asterisk, bang. Asterisk. But when the smoke cleared, Karuda remained untouched. The monster mumbled something as he stalked toward the protagonist. Yuren clicked his tongue. It wasn't working. This was the build of a legendary warrior. His skin was as hard as tempered steel. Ilya cursed the beast through gritty teeth. How dare you slaughter my people? Her sword aura erupted around her. I will never forgive you. She charged with extreme speed, her skill fully unleashed. Steel sang against steel as her blade clashed equally with the orc warrior's weapon. Sparks flew as they exchanged heavy blows. Karuda remained unyielding, defending every strike, but the subordinates cheered. The team leader is incredible. Yuren watched, impressed. As expected of Ilya, her sword queen trait was truly overpowered. To think that this early in the novel, she was strong enough to push Karuda back and even cut his steel-like skin. But then, the monster's true rage ignited. A heavy pressure descended, drawing the girl's attention. He let out a primal roar, his aura exploding outward. Ilya's eyes widened. How was a monster capable of such refined energy? Karuda moved with blinding speed, forcing a desperate block. The impact was devastating. Just like in the original story, Ilya was defeated by Karuda. The soldiers rushed to tend to their fallen leader. It's humiliating. Ilya wept. I couldn't defeat him. We have to run to survive, she pleaded. But Yuren stepped to the front of the battle line. The orc called out to him in a guttural, bestial tongue. The protagonist didn't flinch. He simply gripped his dagger, preparing to throw it. He launched a direct blast at the creature. Karuda scoffed and swatted the attack away as if it were nothing more than a fly. Yule realized his plan worked perfectly. The direct dagger throw was just a feint. The real trap lay in the explosive shrapnel hidden within. The beast paused, confusion clouding its gaze. It finally noticed the debris lodged deep in its shoulder armor, but it was too late. The remnants of the black iron explosive triggered a devastating chain reaction. Garuda roared in agony as the blast shredded his right arm, rendering the limb completely useless. The first dagger was nothing but a decoy. Garuda had been so focused on blocking the frontal assault that he missed the lethal shadow lurking behind him. Its skin might be as hard as steel, but the joints? That was a completely different story. The crack in the armor was the fatal flaw. Yule smirked. For the first time, the massive golem trembled in genuine fear of the human standing before it. Roaring with desperation, the monster charged with instinctive fury. It swung a massive horizontal slash, but Yule flowed around the attack like smoke. The beast unleashed a flurry of strikes, but hit nothing but air. Yule twirled his dagger, his eyes cold. Is that all you intend to do? Asterisk. Boom. Asterisk. Another explosion blossomed against the creature's hide, staggering it. You're only afraid of the bombs? Yule scoffed. Don't look away. But the desperate orc locked its gaze onto a softer target, Giranox the blacksmith. Ignoring Yule, the behemoth stomped toward the terrified man. Yule shouted, "Don't you dare!" as Garuda leaped for the kill. Damn it. Yule cursed, his dantian exploding with power. He had to save him, no matter the cost. He channeled every ounce of chi into his legs, times dragon treading steps. Asterisk. Just as the monster's blade fell toward the blacksmith, Yule intercepted. Moving so fast he left trails of afterimages in his wake. Asterisk. Crash. Asterisk. The blast hit the earth, missing its mark. Garuda turned, his beastly eyes widening in shock. Impossible. That speed. It defied the laws of physics. Time to end this. Yule summoned the ultimate technique. One of the 4 heavenly hidden weapons of the Tang Clan. The Times Blood Butterfly Asterisk. With a flick of his wrist, he launched the curved projectile. The butterfly didn't rush. It fluttered through the air, moving with a graceful, eerie slowness that mocked the violence of the battlefield. It's beautiful, Ilya whispered, mesmerized. Meanwhile, the orc shook uncontrollably, sensing its inevitable doom. The beast swatted frantically with its sword, but the butterfly danced through every defense. Asterisk, thump, asterisk. It landed gently on the orc's chest and then unleashed a hellish scream as the final explosion ripped the warlord apart from the inside. Yule watched the carnage with a stoic expression, while Ilya stood frozen, her mind struggling to comprehend the destruction she just witnessed. Yule let out a breath. With that much chi infused into the blood butterfly, even an orc warlord's defenses were like paper before a flame. It was a crushing victory. The massive body collapsed with a thud. The battle was won. Ilya snapped back to reality. "It's not over yet," she commanded, her voice cutting the silence. "Wipe out the stragglers. Leave none alive." Giranox bowed deeply to the young master, tears in his eyes. Yule nodded, relieved. His first life-or-death battle had ended in total victory. Later that night at the encampment, Yule approached the commander. "Are you injured, Captain Ilya?" She shook her head, though her face was pale. "I am in your debt," she admitted, swallowing her pride. "I have no right to complain about wounds." Yule shrugged. "We're allies." It was only natural. You don't use a sword," she noted, looking at him with new eyes. "Your style is unique." "I don't train in swordsmanship," Yule confirmed calmly. "I follow the path of hidden weapons." She stared at him, disbelief written all over her face. Explosive spheres, butterflies that shatter steel. The power was undeniable, yet hard to accept. She had spent her entire life believing the sword was the sovereign of all weapons. Today, that belief had been shattered, and her world grew a little larger. A subordinate knight interrupted the moment. "Captain, the spatial bag is ready for transport." Ilya nodded. "We can't recover all the fallen, but we must take the warlord's head." Grimly, she drove her blade into Garuda's corpse to sever the proof of victory. She paused, looking at the massive bulk. "This beast is colossal. It won't fit in the bag whole." "It's fine," she sighed, wiping her blade. "Just the head will suffice. Night is falling. We need to move out." As they rode out, a knight named Musk approached the captain. Ilya's eyes narrowed. "Where have you been, Musk?" The signal fire was lit hours ago. Musk feigned confusion, panting. "Apologies, Captain. We were ambushed by a scouting party miles away. We were delayed by the skirmish." Ilya listened, her face unreadable. "I see. And the others?" Why are you the only survivors? They fell in battle, Musk lied smoothly. The orcs were stronger than anticipated. Ilya's gaze hardened. Is that so? Bring me their bodies. Musk froze, then slowly walked toward her, his hand creeping toward his belt. Ilya continued issuing orders, seemingly distracted. I will explain everything, Musk said, his voice dropping an octave. Suddenly, he drew a dagger, lunging for her throat. Asterisk, clang, asterisk. Before the blade could touch her, Yule was there. A swift kick sent Musk sprawling into the dirt. You claim to have fought orcs? Yule looked down at him with cold contempt. Then explain why there isn't a single drop of green blood on your armor. You've been working with them from the start, haven't you? Musk's eyes bulged. How did you? Ilya drew her sword, the metallic ring sounding like a death knell. So, the traitor reveals himself. Wait, I am of the Malone family, Musk stammered, scrambling back. We have served the Marcus house for generations. You can't. I don't care who you are, Ilya said coldly. She didn't hesitate. The blade fell, silencing his lies forever. The night marched on. Sunlight pierced the curtains of the noble guest room in Asu Castle. Geranox shook the young master awake with urgent persistence. Yuren groggily rose, eyes sharp, demanding the reason for this disturbance. The blacksmith warned that lunch approached, and Captain Elliot had arrived. Suddenly, a vision in darkness stepped forward. It was Ilya, draped in an elegant black dress, asking softly if her fiancé had rested well. Yuren froze, utterly caught off guard. His eyes widened, unable to comprehend the stunning transformation before him. Ilya stepped closer. Her father, the Marquis, had summoned them to the main estate. She gazed at him, a silent plea in her eyes, asking if he would accompany her. Seeing her up close, Yuren was struck by a realization. To call her the most beautiful woman in the world was no exaggeration, it was a fact. Without hesitation, he vowed to go with her. A faint smile touched her lips. She told him to prepare quickly. She would be waiting at the entrance. As she left, Yuren analyzed the situation. Ever since he saved her, the system showed her affection score rising steadily. Yuren stepped out into the bright courtyard. He called out to Ilya, offering a sincere apology for keeping a lady waiting. The crowd erupted. Whispers turned to cheers for the iron-blooded knight, Lady Ilya. They praised her as the heroine who single-handedly crushed the orc warrior. Yuren watched her, accepting the title. She refused to yield even in the face of death. It played out exactly as it did in the original novel. But then, the chant changed. Lord Yuren, the Iron Mage, they screamed, swooning over his looks. Yuren blinked in confusion. The soldiers must have spread wild exaggerations. They likely witnessed his metal sphere manipulation and mistook it for high-tier magic. His train of thought snapped as Ilya suddenly spoke his name. Her voice turned serious. Though she had said it before, the weight of her gratitude was immense. He had saved her life not once, but twice. Yuren waved it off with a humble smile. He told her no thanks were needed. Protecting her was simply the natural thing to do. Ilya revealed the darkness of her mourning. At dawn, she returned to the forest to recover the fallen. The sight of the battlefield was a heartbreaking tapestry of loss. Standing amidst the carnage, a chilling realization struck her. If Yuren hadn't intervened yesterday, her cold body would be lying there among them. Yuren lowered his gaze solemnly. But Ilya's eyes burned with new fire. She clenched her fist, swearing an oath to train harder and ascend to new heights of power. She would surpass every limit, every rival. She vowed never to taste the bitterness of defeat again. Yuren recognized the shift. Her true potential had finally blossomed. Just then, mana crackled in the air. The family mages had prepared the warp gate to the Marcus domain. Ilya beckoned him forward. They had to hurry. As they stepped into the circle, the mages chanted, and the world dissolved into light. Teleportation magic activated. Space warped around them. Yuren and Geranox gasped at the sensation. Ilya noted softly that it had been a long time since he last set foot in her territory. In the blink of an eye, the scenery shifted completely. Yuren stumbled slightly, shaking off the dizziness of spatial travel. Geranox stared in awe. Did all high nobles live in such colosseums? But there was no time for sightseeing. The protagonist had been summoned for a feast. Yuren recalled the original storyline. In the text, he was condemned to eat the Marcus family's bland churn stew every single day. But fate had changed. Today, a true noble banquet awaited. The Marquis beamed, welcoming his future son-in-law. Yuren attempted a formal bow, but the Lord waved him down, no stiffness required here. Accepting the warmth, the young man took his seat directly across from Ilya. The Marquis spoke with heavy emotion. Before politics, before marriage, Ilya was his daughter first. He offered profound thanks for saving her life. Yuren remained humble, insisting it was merely his duty. Servants entered, and the main course was placed before them. Yuren waited, heart pounding. The lid was lifted. It was revealed. The Marcus family's special churn soup, the Marquis explained with pride. Like the Rox family, they had their traditions. This nutrient-dense soup was the sacred meal consumed after surviving a battle. He urged Yuren to eat heartily. Yuren thanked him, lifting the spoon, trying desperately to convince himself that he had the stomach for this military ration. Suddenly, the spoon froze. The Marquis dropped a bombshell question. "When do you plan to hold the wedding?" Yuren choked on the air. The Marquis pressed on about his daughter's future. Yuren's mind raced. This must be a psychological test. The system showed the Marquis's affection was still -10. He hated him. Yuren gambled, declaring he would marry her this very instant if he could. Ilya turned beet red. Yuren shifted to a somber tone. He admitted the truth. He was not yet the family heir, and his reckless past cast a long shadow over his reputation. But his eyes burned with resolve. He would reinvent himself. Once he claimed the title of successor, he would proudly take Ilya as his wife. The Marquis leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Did he truly believe that was possible? His younger brother was hailed as a generational genius. Can you really crush such a prodigy and seize the heirship? Yuren met his gaze without flinching. I am more than capable. The Marquis threw his head back and laughed. The rumors were true. The boy had changed. He declared his full support for Yuren's ambition. The laughter subsided. The Marquis's expression darkened. Before Yuren arrived, an urgent message came through from the Wellington territory. Word traveled fast. The Rox family already knew he was here. His father had requested a magic communication link. The Marquis suggested they take the call immediately after eating. Yuren nodded, offering a polite word of thanks, though tension tightened his chest. He glanced at Ilya. She seemed moody again. Regardless, he had successfully navigated the minefield and impressed the Marquis. In the communication chamber, the ritual began. A mage activated the crystal orb, connecting to the Rox household. The image of the Lord flickered into existence. Yuren watched the hologram stabilize. It was just like a modern video call, but powered by arcane mana. The young master, Yuren, connected the call, bowing his head in apology. His father's voice crackled with fury, calling him an ungrateful brat, but the anger quickly masked deep concern. Are you hurt? The patriarch demanded. Yuren smirked. Not a scratch. Wellington didn't waste time on pleasantries. He shifted the subject instantly, his voice grave. He demanded to know the truth. Did his son truly save Ilya and slaughter an orc warrior? Yuren shrugged it off with casual grace. Just a bit of luck, he lied smoothly. We will speak of the details when you return, his father commanded, accepting the humble excuse for now. When will you be home? Yuren promised to return in 2 days, but then a thunderbolt dropped. Bring your brother with you. The color drained from Yuren's face. The Marquis interrupted, insisting Yuren leave early tomorrow. However, he added, it would be an honor if the young hero stayed a few more days. Yuren replied that he wished he could, but his father had given him a strict task. A pity. The Marquis sighed. Then allow me to provide our family's magic portal. You should travel in comfort. Yuren sighed internally. It was a tempting offer, but he shook his head. He had to refuse, no matter how grateful he was. Comfort breeds weakness. He was at a level where every step needed to be training. Relaxing with a teleport was out of the question. The Marquis stared, realizing Yuren had truly become a different person. Excitement bubbled within the noble. He couldn't wait to see just how strong this young monster would become. Yuren bowed in thanks. Ilya beamed at his determination, clearly charmed by his resolve. But internally, Yuren calculated. He had his own secret reasons for avoiding the Marquis's teleportation gate. Jurnox pointed toward the capital. The path lies that way. But Yuren shook his head. We have a stop to make first, the protagonist announced, his eyes gleaming with intent. He pointed to the looming peak next to the marker, the place known as the Dragon's Clearing. Jurnox frowned. Why go there before the forge? Here to make a wish? Young master? The blacksmith asked. Yuren suppressed a grin. A wish? No. He was here to snatch a legendary treasure, an artifact the original protagonist wasn't supposed to find until much later in the timeline. They trekked through the ancient nesting grounds. The cave known as the Dragon's Clearing was once the home of legendary beasts. It's early, his subordinate grumbled, eyeing the crowd. Yet there are so many people. Is the treasure real? Juranox whispered. Lies, Yuren scoffs. But the world is full of secrets. Just follow me. They moved away from the main path. Juranox panted heavily, looking around the barren rocks. There's nothing here, he complained. Yuren stopped. Is this it? He wondered. He spotted it, a rock formation strangely resembling a car door. He checked his surroundings. No one was watching. Yuren reached out and pulled the stone handle. With a heavy grind, the rock slid open sideways. Juranox's jaw dropped in disbelief. Impossible, the blacksmith gasped. Ignoring the shock, Yuren stepped into the darkness, and the stone sealed shut behind them. It's brighter than I expected, Juranox remarked, looking around the illuminated cavern. Light flooded from a glowing gemstone. Juranox reached out, but Yuren barked a command. Don't touch it, unless you want to die. What kind of trap? Jurnox pulled his hand back. Yuren's eyes narrowed. Touch that, and this entire space becomes an inferno. Stay in my footsteps, Yuren warned. The blacksmith nodded, sweating. They approached a grand altar standing in the center. Incredible, Jurnox whispered. But it's empty. Yuren smirked. Do you know what lies behind it? This was where the false dungeon ended, but through the stone wall, Yuren sensed life energy. People were praying on the other side, completely unaware of the intruders just a few feet away. Yuren triggered a hidden switch under the altar. Click. A compartment opened, revealing 3 heavy sacks of gold coins. Unbelievable, Jurnox breathed, but Yuren ignored the gold. He picked up a small, dusty box. This was worth more than a mountain of coins. Inside lay the warrior's jade, an artifact of rebirth, essential for breaking his limits. Where to now? Jurnox asked. Jezu Castle? Yuren replied, clutching the treasure. To the magic tower. Outside, the oblivious crowds continued their prayers. Suddenly, the air grew heavy. A crushing pressure descended on Yuren. He activated his creator's eye on a woman in the crowd. Nothing happened. Yuren froze. She shouldn't be here yet. Young master? Jurnox whispered, sensing the fear. Yuren stiffened. Her aura wasn't just strong, it was monstrous. Cold sweat trickled down his neck. She was an existence he absolutely could not defeat right now.